Hang on, I hear the audience at home say, haven't you already reviewed Uncharted 4? And yeah, I have. But when I first made that review, it had been less than a month since the game first came out, and a lot can change in that time. So join me as I take a look at just how well Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, holds up. Despite being really excited for the game, I was also skeptical. Less than a year before this game came out, Batman Arkham Knight really disappointed me, and I didn't have many concerns with that game prior to release. As such, I didn't let myself get too excited for Uncharted 4, and I found that it blew me away, and I came out of the game loving every moment of it. However, when I made the review, I was still really excited by how much I enjoyed it. On top of that, it had been a long time since I'd played 1 and 2, so now that the hype has died down and that I've revisited the first 3 games, is Uncharted 4 still the jewel of the series I once thought it was? Well, let's find out. Since the events of Uncharted 3, Nate and Elena have started to live a more ordinary life as a married couple, yet some of Drake still misses the thrill of adventure, but he manages to look past it. Everything changes, however, when Nate's supposedly dead brother Sam is revealed to be alive, and when it's shown that his brother's life is on the line if he doesn't find the lost fortune of the pirate Henry Avery, something that the two brothers had been searching for before Sam's supposed death, Nate can now go back to the adventurous life once more to find Avery's lost fortune. And what an adventure it is! Yeah, as another adventure in the series, the story's fantastic. It's much more character-driven than the other games, and the cast is always the highlight of each entry, and we've got some new personalities. While Sam's existence as a character has some obvious plot holes, it's not that hard to look past it, and I really like him. He adds an interesting new dynamic to our main cast and works off them in interesting ways, thanks in part to another great performance from Troy Baker. As is tradition with every Uncharted game, we have some new villains. And compared to the other villains from the series, these are probably the best we've had. Well, at least Rafe is. Nadine's alright, but she could have been cut from the game entirely and nothing would have been lost. Okay, some scenes might have to be slightly tweaked, but you get my point. But on the other side of the spectrum, we have Rafe Adler, who's by far my favourite villain in the series. He acts sophisticated for most of the game, which makes sense considering his rich background, but it's established that he's also on edge. And by the end, all the professional charm is gone and his true colours are revealed, and it's really interesting to see the contrast. Speaking of great stuff, I really love the historical aspect of the story. You actually discover the Lost City a lot earlier than in previous games, but Libertalia has much more of a story to it, and it's really interesting to see the corruption within Paradise, and most of it's done visually. There's one chapter in particular which tells you so much about what happened with little dialogue. It's also pretty damn disturbing too, but in a good way. For all the praise I've given this game before and even now, it's clear that this story held up great on the second playthrough, and I could only think of 2 actual flaws. One of them being pretty minor, and the other... let's start with the minor one. I did bring this up in my original review, but there's points in the story where Nate and Elena will talk about their personal issues pretty sporadically, and it comes off as...
We should stay focused. There'll be time for this later.
Oh. Maybe I remembered it wrong then.
I wasn't trying to protect you.
Whoa, okay.
It's just, I made a promise that I was done with this.
We both did.
Yeah, but I broke it. I didn't tell you because I was afraid.
So yeah, it's still an issue, but only for the latter part of the game, so it's not too hard to look past it. What isn't hard to look past, at least for me, is the ending. Hear me out. I never said the actual moment was bad. It's a cute moment, and as the end of the series, it's great. But it's in a story that doesn't feel like a series finale. I'll be honest, throughout replaying the entire game again, it was really bothering me that I knew how it was all gonna end, and really getting this feeling that this was just another adventure for Nate, and that the epilogue just feels out of place with the rest of the game. I'll admit that when I actually did get to playing it again, I thought, I actually really like this. But sometime afterwards I got back to the same feeling I had before. For me, this adventure needed to push Nate beyond his limits for the ending to feel satisfying as the conclusion to the series, as well as feeling earned after the hardships you had to endure previously. But it just doesn't. Before this game came out, Neil Druckmann said that the ending would divide fans, but I didn't realise he meant that fans would be divided with their own opinions, or at least I am. On the one hand, I really like the moment itself, but I also don't like that it comes off as kind of forced, if I'm honest. So maybe Uncharted 4 isn't the best finale out there, but on its own merits, it's still a hell of a ride. I still think the original feels the most classic, but this one's by far the deepest and most engrossing of the series. By infusing the storytelling of both the previous installments and The Last of Us, Naughty Dog have given us a journey that's nothing short of unforgettable. Oh boy, I can't wait to hear Nate's theme 4.0! From the main menu alone, I could tell this wasn't going to be the Uncharted I was used to. It felt more realistic, the soundtrack's a bit more plain, heck, the story has more in common with the Goonies than it does with Indiana Jones. So yeah, this is definitely a different kettle of fish from the other games, and nowhere is that more apparent than in the gameplay. Now don't get the wrong idea, you'll still be gunning mercenaries down and climbing up cliff sides, but you won't be doing as much shooting this time around, partly because there's also more platforming, but mainly thanks to the game being much more stealth heavy. The basic drill is that you enter an area, mark enemies with L3, and then sneak up behind to take them out more silently. Your main camouflage is tall grass, but if you get in enemy eyesight, they'll get suspicious. If they see you whilst they're looking for you, they'll begin to shoot at you, so stealth is thrown out of the window in favour of gunning some mercenaries down. As satisfying as the shooting in the game is, I really enjoy the stealth too. For this second playthrough, I challenged myself to try and take an area of enemies out using only stealth. And how did I do? Well, I did always get caught, but I was still able to turn the odds back in my favour to finish the job. So we'll just call it a mini-win and move swiftly on. As I said a moment ago, there's much more platforming this time around, and it feels a lot smoother than the other games. It can feel a little unresponsive at times, but not enough to ruin the experience. On top of that, we also have a whip? Oh, hell yes! Not only does this make Uncharted 4 the best Indiana Jones game ever, it's actually really satisfying to use and really gives the climbing sections that extra thrill. And then there's sliding down cliff sides? Oh, hell yes! I love slides in video games, so I had a blast with it, and it adds to the adrenaline of the climbing much like the whip. So yeah, there is a lot more platforming than shooting, heck, you do a lot of exploring in general too, but with these new additions, including some vehicles, I'm cool with it. See, if you like the Uncharted games for the action, then you'll probably get bored, but thanks to the smooth controls, gorgeous environments, and modern day physics, still had fun replaying the quieter moments. And speaking of action, the set pieces are a bit generic, if I'm honest. There are quite a few, but they're either just glorified shootouts or a little too short to leave that much of an impression. There's a couple of those big ones, and they're pretty good, but they don't have the same awe of 2, and especially 3. And I think the problem is the truck chase in Madagascar. Now the scene itself is perfect. We've got to catch up with Sam! Go on, go on! Holy crap, don't hit that down! Die, die, die! Climb, climb, climb! No, no, no! Yes! This is amazing! So yeah, this part is still freaking awesome. It's thrilling, intense, and by far the highlight of the game. But they showed it at E3. Most of us knew about the best scene in the game before it was even out, so all the other big moments fall a little flat in comparison. Maybe I am being a little unfair, as it's my own fault for watching all the marketing, but still, I wanted more big moments like that. I've said quite a lot this video that this is a much quieter game than the others, so surely a much more grounded route fits the game's tone? It does, and I do like the set pieces fine. I just feel like I should have mentioned them a lot more in the original review, especially the whole E3 situation. Anyway, let's move on to the final part of single-player gameplay, the puzzles. They're still really good. There's only a few, but I really enjoyed replaying them. Most of them. Anyway, I'd say the puzzles are where each game in the series really improved, and these are the best we've had. Before I come to an overall conclusion on the game, I should talk about the multiplayer briefly. I really enjoyed it back at launch, and I still do. Now I don't really have anything to compare it to, well, I can play True and Freeze online, but only by myself, and I don't think it's really the same. Getting back to 4s, I still find it a lot of fun, and since I first reviewed it, we've had some new modes, so instead of retreading old ground, I'll talk about those instead. The first new mode is Bounty Hunter, in which one team has a player they have to make sure isn't killed by the enemy, otherwise they'll claim points. After a certain amount of time, the other team gets a player that'll be hunted down, and this keeps going on until a winning team emerges. It's pretty fun to hunt down a specific player or guard them, but I've never had the bounty myself. Crap. Okay, get out of here. Make sure no enemies see me. Okay, I think I'm good. Let's just hide here and wait it out. 3, 2, 1. Yes! I survived! Okay, that was good. Let's continue. Oh, no! Close but no cigar, my friend. I no longer have the bounty. You see, I let my guard down after the time was up so I could die a meaningless death, and that you gained nothing from my demise. Face it, genius. You've been played. Then there's King of the Hill, which is basically plunder, but there's only 1 point to capture at a time. Which isn't even an actual hill, might I add. And when one team has claimed the point, they have to keep it for a minute and stop the enemies from capturing it. But if they get killed, you can't respawn until the minute is up, and once that's done, it repeats until the match is over. I really enjoyed the few matches I played for this review, because there's a bit more tension added when you have the incentive to survive. And speaking of surviving, Naughty Dog made a pretty big deal out of the most recent mode, Survival. You have to, what else? Survive against 5 waves of CPU enemies on each stage, with some ways having a little twist to them, like sometimes you have to be in a certain area or there's treasure you have to collect, and I'm not gonna lie, I had a blast with this mode. Kills feel satisfying and it can be really, really intense. Okay, we failed this way too many times and we only need 3 more kills! No! Okay, it's 2 KOs remaining, but the other place is down! Come on! Okay. Here I am! Come on, we're gonna do it! Where? So close. But when you do complete a wave you had trouble with, it's the most satisfying feeling. So the multiplayer is still a ton of fun, and hopefully we'll continue to get some cool new modes in the future. As a whole, Uncharted 4 definitely held up on this second playthrough. But it's also shown me that it falls completely flat as finale to the series. But if you take it for what it is, I still really love it. If the whole story felt more like an ending to the franchise, this could have been my favourite game in the series. But it doesn't, and it's a little too big an issue to ignore. But even so, everything else is top notch. I had a blast replaying through this journey again, and even though I found some issues with it, I'll at least always remember my first time experiencing this incredible adventure. So I think I'll stick with my original score of 96% of overall quality, but that doesn't necessarily make it my favourite Uncharted game. Oh, that honor goes to the Nathan Drake collection. I mean, duh! Anyway, Uncharted 4 may not be the best conclusion to an amazing franchise, but it most definitely is still an adventure that needs to be experienced. Oh god, I got no cover! Trip out of here!